ball, sends it over to Edward Robles. Go! Insert name FC! Let's go! Insert name FC! Alright, what is up, guys? It is Hector, host of the Insert Name FC podcast, a member of the... I don't know why, I always keep looking back at to make sure I have the mic on. Just whatever. Alright, anyways. Gold Cup has concluded, so this episode, or makeshift episode, whatever you want to call it, it is literally just talking about the Gold Cup as a whole, Gold Cup final. Mexico did win 2-1. I did pick Mexico to win the whole thing, unfortunately, but it's a bittersweet correct, I guess you could say, but yeah. So this episode, we do have Moussa from Football TV coming in to talk about this final in the Gold Cup, show his perspective as someone that's not necessarily has any connections to CONCACAF, but still, I think some good insight from someone that loves the sport of football. But with a different point of view when it comes to internationally, at least. I think it was a great conversation, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode, man. So take care. Let me tell you guys about BellyUpSports. BellyUpSports is the internet sports bar. Go ahead and check out their website, www.bellyupsports.com, to read some great articles from great writers all across the country, from hockey, baseball, golf, soccer, you name it. BellyUpSports is the premier, not your average website. All right, man. The Gold Cup final, the Gold Cup has concluded. Literally minutes from the game concluding. Of course, I bring in my good friend Moussa from Football TV and many other conglomerates that you have. As far as you guys know, this guy is everywhere when it comes to St. Louis and their soccer culture over there. But also gives a unique perspective as far as the Gold Cup goes, being that he has really maybe no skin in the game when it comes to Gold Cup. I don't know where you are as far as the U.S. men's national team goes, or U.S. soccer goes, but being your French background. But of course, Moussa, first of all, your knowledge of the Gold Cup, at least prior to this tournament, where was that with you? Did you know a little bit about it, or was it just something that was like very foreign to you, at least when it comes to the CONCACAF region?
No, I think I was aware of the Gold Cup because, it was like sort of our Euros like. So it's, part of the continent that's played with it. I was maybe not too familiar with all of the other teams other than, Mexico, Canada, and the US. And maybe Honduras was one of them. It's just throughout the years, I was starting to see a little bit more of the Caribbean teams when they start playing at Energizer Park, or what used to be City Park, Tobago and Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, all these teams have played in St. Louis. So that's how I kind of grew to start watching the Gold Cup a little bit more interest. And I'm in the US, so it's quite easy to get familiar with it and get a little excited about it as well.
So for you, Moussa, when this tournament was announced and you saw all the groups, I mean, I'm not going to go into depth with it, but as far as your excitement of seeing teams from Central America and, like you mentioned, the Caribbean, did you ever feel like maybe any of these teams had a chance, or did you think it was just Mexico, USA, and Canada?
Well, I thought also, more of the Honduras, because we know that they typically do well in that tournament. Guatemala, we saw how well they did in St. Louis. Jamaica was a little bit more one of the surprise for me that did not progress as well. The games that I watched last year was Trinidad and Tobago, kind of the excitement of the small islands playing. So that was the interesting part of the Gold Cup. Kind of get to know the other side of the world of CONCACAF. They just the big guess 4, 5, 6 teams that we always talk about. So I did not expect any of them to kind of have a huge push, maybe outside of Jamaica, but their team is a shambles. So I was not too surprised that they did not make it too far.
No, yeah, and I think you mentioned Guatemala, which, by the way, guys, I mean at this point everyone knows I'm Salvadorian American, but um, I'm also my brother-in-law is Guatemalan, so I've now I guess developed a soft spot for Guatemala. But you know what? I think this Guatemalan team, to be honest, was so easy to like fall in love with the way this team was. One, how they were playing. I
Right.
think played very well in this tournament. Very much fought up, punched above their weight. And I mean, you upset Jamaica and you upset Canada. So I mean, and then also the fans. I think Guatemala did a great job on attending these matches. I'm sure
They
attendance has
took
been
over. Yeah, they took over Energizer Park. That's for sure.
so yeah, and like I said, the quality of play as a Salvadorian definitely disappointed in El Salvador's national team of just you know while you have Costa Rica kind of going through their identity crisis,
Yeah.
Honduras kind of also having their little slip up, uh, Guatemala who was never in this conversation, they didn't get featured in many Gold Cups, and El Salvador didn't capitalize on any of that. So, and so here you are now you see Guatemala having their uprise. Also, by the way, beautiful kits that they had for this tournament, by the way,
Yeah.
too. So yeah, I loved everything about Guatemala. I think for me, this whole tournament, if I had to say what was the story that took me away from this whole tournament, it's just I just can't wait for Guatemala. I can't wait to see what they do. Um, will we see them in the 2026 World Cup? Maybe, maybe not. Depends how they do in qualifiers, but it gets you excited about how Guatemala's been progressing, and it's a
Yep.
lot of their own player. It's from their home league, the Guatemala League. Yes, there's a mixture of players that play in MLS, but still, it's mostly homegrown players that are doing it, and I think that's really cool. So for me, Guatemala, best story from the tournament. If especially when you upset Canada and
Yep.
a very cocky Canada. I want to add on to
Hey,
that.
hey.
A very cocky,
Ye-
respectively so. I'm not trying to take anything away from Canada. You should have been very confident. I mean, despite not having Alfonso Davies, you still had a very good roster. A lot of people speak very highly of Jesse Marsh,
Yep.
and so you would think that this is the team that's going to make it to the final and maybe lift their second trophy, Gold Cup in however many years. Um, Along with Mexico, who also brought in ideally the team that they're going to be featuring in the 2026 World Cup.
Smart.
So I think Guatemala, I think being able to once again punch above their weight and show people like, hey, we're here, but we're not looking to leave anytime soon.
Yeah, and like I always told other people is that the pride when it comes to a team that comes with pride, it's probably the most dangerous team that you can play against because they know they've already played with house money to begin with, so they are pretty much don't have the fear of messing up, and they definitely showed it with the U.S. against in St. Louis, right, where St. Louis was the U.S. was all comfortable with that 2-0, and then they started to make a run back. So it definitely showed a story that maybe they have something for the qualifiers.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the U.S. Because obviously the whole conversation they did not bring their best players out. Christian Pulisic taking a break for the summer because he wants to have a strong 2025-26 campaign. At least that's what he's saying. I think you can tell me how you feel, but I think the interviews that he's had kind of hurt him more than it helped him in the process. That's just my
Hmm.
opinion. Not you can tell me
Yeah.
what you think as well, but the U.S. a lot going into this tournament. Obviously, Mauricio Pochettino, a name that you're very familiar with, being that he
Yes.
managed both your favorite teams in Chelsea and PSG,
And play
uh,
for PSG too
and
in
played
his
for
playing
PSG.
days.
So a guy that you're very much familiar with. Obviously, horrendous Nations League, right? I think
Yeah.
it's all safe to say that was a very horrendous Nations League. And then you go into this Gold Cup. Well, I'll ask you this: Gold Cup, however you view wherever you rank it amongst the continental tournaments, obviously Euro is going to be number one, right? Fair to say.
To a point, yeah.
But um, players opting out of competing in continental tournaments, like where do you stand on that?
I'm not used to it.
Hmm.
Unless something, something almost like personal or like mentally, when they're not maybe prepared, then I may understand it. But I think the biggest drop of how all of this debacle was is that maybe the U.S. Federation or Pochettino should have maybe protected Pulisic from the public, right? So instead of saying maybe they should have said, we decided that maybe he was not ready or his workload was so much that we decided not
Hmm.
to bring in him. So at least you kind of shield your player because a coach is supposed to do that pretty much, or your federation to kind of shield them for all of that criticism, right? But also at the same time, maybe those interviews and his pops going after, some of the OG players, it kind of showed the whole Gio Reyna thing, right?
Hmm.
Where your parents started to be in that mix, and then mom and dad are fighting, and the kid is stuck in the between of it. So I think for me, the biggest takeaway was that maybe they did not kind of shield him away from it when he came to them. Is that, maybe we will kind of protect you because you're probably the most important player on our team. But on the other hand, as well, is that if I'm looking at other like big time players that are expected to play well during the World Cup, I can't really say a name of another player that said, I'm sort of taking a break from the Club World Cup, or I'm taking a break from whatever exhibition game I have at this moment. Um,
Hmm.
I don't recall anyone from the national team unless it was well covered, but I cannot remember one that says, I want to take a break. Usually you want like a full 12 months of you being active, being the best shape of your life,
Hmm.
possibly.
Yep.
So they probably could have handled it differently and maybe shield him from a lot of the criticism. I saw he was doing like open a few pitch for kids that did not have, the opportunity. So it looks like he was, not just sipping mai tais on the beach somewhere. Um, but players are players. They play a lot more games these days than compared to what the OGs used to. So, sometime he may need it, but that may now put a bigger spotlight on what he's going to do during the World Cup. Because it's like, you got your break, so what
Yeah.
can you do for us now?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like I said, I think that this was one of those where, like, in kind of how you mentioned it, like, bad part on Pulisic, but also not great on the U.S. Soccer Federation. And I'll even throw the media as well, being
Oh yeah,
as
yeah.
critical as and I think one, we I think that's something that we've asked for the media to be more critical, that there should be consequences for not performing, not living up to your expectations. Obviously, I'm sure the French media, if Mbappe were to opt out of the Euro because for
Sure. What?
for he wants a break,
Yeah. He
you
did
know.
not even get picked, and he got criticized for not showing up.
So that prime example, like French media very critical to players. I mean, if you want to even be more specific, down the board in Mexico, if Raul Jimenez or Edson Alvarez would have said, you know what, I'm not playing in this tournament, their media would be on for the uproar for these players. And so when you see media heads like Alexi Lawless and Landon Donovan, and trying to speak out and say like this is not acceptable. Any chance that I get to wear the badge, I'm going to do it. And then you have people telling them that you can't be critical to the players. Like how does that sit with you as someone that played, but also knowing what a real media looks like as far as football
So I
culture?
think it's like I think there's also that balance as well, where some of the criticism was due, But then I think every time someone spoke up, someone else behind came back and said, "You're not the right person to speak about it."
Is there a right person?
I don't know because all situations are different. And but and I think that's where maybe the no maybe the team chemistry of who's playing now versus who used to play, maybe there's that disconnect maybe
Hmm.
where maybe not from the same generation or this grew up the same way, but it was kind of hard for me to see like all the bickering between former players and new players. Where, for example, if I look at Senegal, for example, El Hadji Diouf that played for Liverpool, he's literally traveling with the team, like talking to the players, giving them advice of what he did to be to that level. He traveled with the national team, practiced with the national team. So looks like there's like a different way of dealing with national teams that maybe the culture of US soccer is built different,
Hmm.
or is that the culture of the players playing now versus the culture of the players from the past? It's so disconnected and different that there is no synergy between them because
Hmm.
cannot tell if a player from the bench is in was a former player in the national team. Um, do we know any other like U20s and under if there's any former players, star coaches? Um, I can tell you from Senegal and France, there is former players that are actually coaches on the sideline, advisors, and or playing in the under whatever age group. So I think that's where I saw the biggest disconnect was.
I mean, you have Michael Bradley being an assistant to Jesse Marsh for Canada,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so
that's weird, right? That's
yeah.
like, oh wow. Where he should be probably the US advising because he's reached that level.
he
Who
he
he
wore the captain's armband. Like
yeah,
he would be the perfect assistant for Pochettino if he wanted someone to be
yeah,
relatable to the players. Yeah.
yeah. And say, hey, I've done it. Here's how we've done it. This is how some of the things have been done. If if you need something, here's my cell phone number versus jumping on your mic and then just say whatever you want. It opens a discussion, but at the same time, there's certain channels that people can use. The media will say whatever they want, but sometimes maybe certain players could reach out to those guys and say, "Hey, this is not a good look."
Hmm. No, yeah, definitely. I will say though, aside from that, you do have players like Weston McKennie, backing Christian Pulisic. You
Yeah,
know, I think,
better.
I think that that's a positive to take from it. Obviously, Weston McKennie and Tim Weah, the reason why they're not with the U.S. men's national, at least their reason not to
Hmm.
play for the U.S. men's national team is obviously we're competing in the Club World Cup.
Yep.
Um,
Uh,
uh, Very valid excuse. I don't think a club's gonna let their players go, especially if they're gonna be in a tournament. Especially the guys like Weston McKennie and Tim Weah who are featured players. I think it's safe to say for Juventus, but
yeah, they play. Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, I think it was this whole going into it was just so bizarre, and I think because of that, I didn't have like a high expectation of this team. One, you look at the roster, you could tell this isn't the U.S. men's national team that we're going to see in 20. Mine is a few players that we
Right.
will see in 2026. I think it's very safe to say that, but at the same time, I think one door closes, but another door opens, right?
Mhm.
And I think that that's what this U.S. men's national team, this version in the Gold Cup, took full advantage of. I think when you see guys like uh, Malik Tillman being able to be the guy that can step in and finally play his role as the 10 for the U.S. men's
Mhm.
national team. And I think a lot of people are saying that this guy needs to be in the midfield, needs to be
Yep.
starting, in the World Cup. And I think he put a good name for himself. Guys like Diego Luna continue to rise his stock. I think at this point, you and me are very familiar with Diego Luna. We know
Yes.
and I love that this is happening for him. By the way, I I think I've talked too many times about Diego Luna to this point in this podcast, but I love what I'm seeing from him. But other guys, I mean, Jack McGlynn, showing case that hey, I could be that 26 guy.
Right.
Like all I need is to be in that one spot. I don't really care much else. I can do things for this team, and I think that's the thing about with this team that a lot of guys knew that they had a chance to show what they can do, and if they could just buy in on whatever Pochettino is trying to instill on this team, that maybe they can make a name for themselves. And I think that was the right mentality. I don't know if there's anything else different to it, but I think that with this group of players, they were bought in. I think that's the big difference part that I felt was they were bought into Poch's system, and they showed what the system can do when done right.
Yeah. And I think probably for me, the only thing that's raises so many question marks still is that you know how well they've played in that group, in that camp, but you don't have your staple players in it. So now you still have that disconnect because those 11 that started are not going to be the 11 that started. So now you're bringing back 5 or 6 players and trickle down a little 2 or 3 players. Then the synergy and the connection still need to be built up now from now until the World Cup. And as you know, since they already qualified because they're the hosting country, they won't have as much competitive games to get those kinks. When other countries, a lot of them already know who their starting 11 are, and they're already planning how to play. But the
Yeah,
US is still figuring out who is their starting 11 and goalkeeper.
yeah. I mean, we don't even know who our goalkeeper is, So
Right.
it is insane when we talk about that. And I think before we move on to other topics, Mexico and Canada, they both bring in their A team to some extent. I'm not gonna say that's fully their A team, but they brought their A team.
Right.
Do you feel like when you see Mexico and Canada that these teams are at least in the right direction come 2026?
I don't know if I will say right direction because it looks like Canada would still have a few. They got beat by Guatemala, so it looks like they will have a lot of questions being asked because it's the World Cup. It's going to be very interesting. So I think so. They're still trying to figure it out.
Especially after their last World Cup appearance, because
Yeah.
it was not pretty.
So I think so. They still have a lot of question mark. It looks like, but for Mexico, I think just winning the Gold Cup adds a little bit more, pep in their step to say this is we've won it. So let's maybe have the starting 11 and then kind of fix some of the kinks that um, did not really work for the Gold Cup. So I think they're probably more ready than the US per se, but I don't know if they're ready for the World Cup just yet.
Yeah, I think amongst the host nations, I would definitely say more confidence is given to Mexico. Hey guys, this is Hector from the Insert Name FC podcast here to tell you guys about Canadips. It is a great tasting, superior alternative to traditional dip using CBD in a way that is radical, enjoyable, and effective. It comes in 5 core flavors: wintergreen, mint, citrus, mango, and American spice. Canada CBD is the new evolution in dip, allowing guys to enjoy great, long-lasting taste without the downsides. If you guys want to go ahead and try them out, use the code BellyUp20 at CanadipCBD.com. Once again, BellyUp20 at CanadipCBD.com, and you'll get yourself 20% off your purchase. Thank you again for Canadips for being a great partner of BellyUpSports. Also, Mora, what a kid! I mean, 16 years old, already starting for Mexico right now. First youngest player to be featured in a Continental Cup final. So
That's crazy.
Take that, Lamine Yamal.
Wow.
I'm not even Mexican. This is a win for CONCACAF. But I mean, I watched the kid play. It's sometimes it's just impressive to see a kid that in that age to play in such a physical confederation like CONCACAF and not be scathed. I think also that helps that he plays in Liga MX. But I think anytime you see a young player definitely playing well above their age group, because now you're playing with grown men where this is their job.
Yep.
It ain't pickup no more. This is my job, and I don't want you to take my job. So for him, I think I just love that from seeing what he was doing. I think I can't wait to see more from him. I don't know what's going to happen to him after this. Does he stay at Tijuana, or is there a team knocking, if you will,
Yeah.
for him?
Hopefully they will keep him probably for another year or two to kind of, help him build up the grown man body before you ship him out. And I think probably FIFA has some of those rules where you shouldn't be able to leave till like what, 17 or something like that. So
Kind of similar to Kevin Sullivan, where I believe once he turns 18, he'll be joining Man City. So
yeah,
I
so I
think you
think he's
have.
probably safe another season and a half or so to
Mhm.
bulk Cup, we'll say.
Yeah, start feeding that boy. But yeah,
Yes.
no, definitely. I think I just wanted to point him out, and obviously we got to talk about the one kid that stood out the most for the U.S. men's national team besides Malik Tillman, and that's Diego Luna. At the end of the day, this kid
Yes.
is amazing story. I don't know if I should say this story over. No, I feel like I've been saying his story way too many times, but uh,
Uh,
I'll give you guys the cliff notes. Uh, Barca Residency Academy graduate. No team wanted to sign him because they thought he was fat. I'm not making this up. This is literally what they thought. um, I know for a fact because I worked at the academy. Um, and couldn't find a team, so he ends up signing for USL's El Paso Locomotive.
yep.
Uh, Plays there. I don't know how long. I believe he was there for like a year, maybe a year and a half, year or two. Gets signed by Real Salt Lake, and I was fair to say now, like the rest is very much now where we are, he is now. Helped USA qualify for the Olympics. Doesn't get selected for the Olympic team, but he helped them get there.
Yep.
So I think this kid has a lot to prove, chip on his shoulder mentality. But I think one of the things that at least I liked about him is he plays with a lot of heart. He's very tenacious. I think that's kind of what you want sometimes in a guy that plays in that wing/10 role. And I think his versatility is also an important thing. But this is a kid that if he just gets a little crack on that door, he's gonna find a way to burst through. And I think that's what he really did because I think Pochettino very much believes in him. You don't bring in this kid unless you think unless you believe in something. I mean, the kid broke his nose and went back out there and got an assist,
He
and
missed
can't
picture.
that tells you everything about this kid. And I think it's great. I think obviously everyone loved his story, and unfortunately, and this is the part that kind of breaks my heart, is he very much wants to play for the U.S. men's national team. He grew up Mexican American. His parents are of Mexican descent. He talked about how he was always cheering for the U.S. men's national team. Wasn't
Yeah.
much of a Mexico fan, but you know he chose the U.S. He wanted to always play for the U.S. I also don't think Mexico was knocking his I don't know if he ever got reached out by Mexico as far as I know, but U.S. clearly was just in his pathway. At least that's what he wanted. Um, and the thing that I would say pissed me off the most was in that Guatemala game.
Right.
Instead of people saying, "Oh, USA won 2-1," Diego Luna scores 2 goals in that game. What a performance for him! For him to represent him and his country. It was we didn't lose to the U.S. We lost to a Mexican. So and like I said, there's better ways to go about it. I was not. I was like, you know what? If you lose, you lose. Take the loss and move on. That's all you can do. But don't try to spin zone it away where you're now taking this kid's nationality away from him. And I think this is the reason why I brought you here, Musa, because you are someone that
Uh,
hears this
mm,
a very similar criticism. I think obviously of a higher level, of a higher level of criticism. But obviously, if you guys don't know, Musa is French. Um, and if you guys didn't see the banner, also he's also Senegalese. Um,
yeah.
and the French team, and look, the way I approached it when I saw the French national team, if they play for France, it's because they want to. They believe they bleed for the badge that is the French badge.
Right.
Now you could be proud of where your parents come from or where you're descended of. There's no shame in it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Prime example, me. But at the same time, like I feel like when someone says I want to play for France, I'm French. You don't take that away from that player and say, And I think that a lot of people try to use, and obviously Argentina was one of them, which is kind of funny, especially with their mixture of descents. But
Yeah, there's a whole another discussion with that one.
uh, but for them to like justify, I guess, what France was able to do at the end of the day, these guys were all most of them are French born, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I think there's maybe one Kamavinga, I believe, was a refugee as a kid, but we're talking like born, raised in in France. Yeah, I think maybe N'Golo Kante maybe was one, but like all of them is are French born. That's it.
Hmm. And so I think, like, obviously coming from you from that standpoint, if you can show some relatability to like Diego Luna's situation, like how do you, what's your viewpoint, and I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, and I think that's the interesting part where it probably will take decades to talk about. Um, but the way I like to always put that into an argument where people like to say, "Oh, look at all of the French players; they're like all black and stuff, right?" But if you think about it, on top of that, Griezmann is Portuguese, right? Giroud has some, I believe, Belge um, heritage. So the way people may forget is that, hey, a lot of when you watch the French team, those are French colonies, right? So France went to Africa and took over those land and made a lot of these people, part of their French colonies and then help them rebuild France after World War II. My grandpa fought for the French Legion, which is the French military. That's how a lot of our family then moved to France. The first president of Senegal was fought for the French as well. So it's like we pretty much a lot of these countries have helped built France, and it just happened that we had a separate nationality that we were coming from. But at the end, when you go to Senegal, you do speak French still, and the money is still the franc. It's the African franc. So everything is always tied to France. It just happened that we were born there and we find ourselves to be French. It just happened to be black. Um, and all happened that's a lot of the generations of players that are very good and that go through the academies that go through the French systems are from what we call here, the hood, right? So the pairs have a lot of those parishes around them where there is a lot more immigrants that play the sport, and that's who gets into the academies. And I think the biggest difference when it comes to the US is that a lot of these academies are free, or majority are. So if you're good enough, you will find yourself there, and then you find yourself in academies, and before you know it, your whole academy may look a certain way.
Hmm.
But when you're black, it doesn't matter when you win. Who got the first World Cup of '98? Zinedine Zidane was the guy. He's from Algeria. So we're pretty much part of the French culture. Without Africa, there would not be no France. That's what it is now.
Hmm.
So, and I do understand a lot of the African countries that do say, hey, if you look at the map, all of the from different French colonies, but what can you do with history, right?
Hmm.
They're the one that brought those people here. You met them fight. And most of us consider ourselves French with Senegalese identity or others. But I think that's what makes France national team even better is that not anyone is not cookie cutter.
Hmm.
They all come with a different background of how they can play, and also that they all grew up together from the academy all the way to senior team. They all like best friends, married, know each other for 10 plus years. And that's how the chemistry started. So for the Diego Luna, I think he's stuck in that, that middle ground, right? Where you always have that hyphen because your parents are from a certain country, but you're from this country and you decided to be it in that country. And he's showing more heart than some of the players on that team that were born, raised in the country. So it will be a different experience for a lot of people that are not like you and I, where we have to. I think for me, we're more fortunate to have a different view from different aspects because we're not so stuck in one way of thinking.
Hmm. No, exactly, and for Diego's situation, which he was born here in the United States, he was from California,
Yes.
which is crazy to think because he took a risk and moved to El Paso, Texas, of all things to make his career happen.
Yeah, and I like
Um,
that part because I think I watched it when he was on that show with Daniel Donovan and all that, where I think he passed up MLS Next Pro because he wanted to prove himself with like adults and all that. That's why he went to the USL route.
mhm.
Most of the kids probably would have gone to MLS Next Pro. It probably would have been stuck in that forever cycle. So I think
Unfortunately, there's a lot of players that I think could
they're
say,
stuck in there.
yeah.
So I think so that's what his path sounds a lot more like what the rest of the world path looks like, where you have your up and down and you're not stuck in a certain system. And he took a risk to say, no, I want to go to USL, and it paid up 100%.
Exactly, and I think so. What I was going to refer to, and it's something that I think is very similar to Diego being someone that obviously not the same country, but similar similar situation where there's a phrase in Spanish that's always used between people that were born here, like
Mhm.
first generation. For obviously that's what I am. Um, whereas no somos de aquí ni de allá. That we're not from here, neither from there. So
Yeah,
it's
I've
a
heard that one.
it's a,
Yes.
it's a common phrase that a lot of people talk about, and it's kind of funny because the movie Selena,
Yep. I
that
watched
starred
it.
Jennifer
Yes.
Lopez, has a very iconic scene that is very explains it very well. Is like we have to show the Americans that we're American, but then also show the Mexicans that we're also Mexican, or for my situation, Salvadorian. And it does become frustrating where you feel like you have to try to teeter it, but in reality, I always viewed it as I get to be part of two different cultures that one Salvadorian culture, which it to me is it's awesome, it's amazing, it's a beautiful country, and I hope everyone gets a chance to go visit El Salvador. But at the same time, America is so unique and different, and it's funny how we bolster this country a little too much sometimes. But I love being from this country. I mean, I chose to serve this country at one point in my life, and it's because of just the pride that I have for being here. But yeah, and I know that everyone has different viewpoints, and that's perfectly fine. That's one of the weird things about this country is you can have as many opinions as you want and
Yep.
not and be fine. And I think it's a beautiful thing as well. That's another beautiful thing about this country is that you can speak freely,
Yes.
even
Yes.
though you don't think you can. Literally, I'm a guy with a mic that says a lot of dumb stuff. So,
Hey.
but so I can empathize a lot with him. The thing that's different is actually, which is always funny to me, is when I go to El Salvador and I say I'm Salvadorian, they're like, "Oh, you're not Salvadorian, you're American."
Yes.
It's one of the funniest things that I hear, and the reason why I say it's funny to me because one of my closest friends, he's from Mexico. He was born in Mexico, came here to the United States, and I remember he told me that he's like, I don't know why it irks me, but like he also corrects people a lot when they say I'm Mexican. Like, no, you're not Mexican, you're American.
I,
It's-
that is international, my friend. I get that as well. When go Senegal and all that, there's always that in between where you know you go Senegal, you're not Senegalese, you're French. So I think that's the cricket. It's for those of us that are in multiple cultures and I guess it translates to anything because that's or fortunately and unfortunately that's pretty much I think happens everywhere. A
Yeah.
lot of people ask if I'm French. And they're like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "You really asking me if I'm sure?"
I've actually heard that before as well.
Like
As a matter of
they're
fact, Hector Herrera thought I was Mexican. So
yeah, they're like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Where do you think I'm from?" It's like Nigeria. I was like, "That's the only country you guys know of is
that to me is still one of the funniest things was when I was talking to Hector Herrera because he's like, "Oh, I thought you were Mexican this whole time." I was like, "From what? You're Spanish?" I was like, "My Spanish is awful. What are you talking about?" I was like, "I don't have an accent. If anything, it's an American Spanish accent." So I thought it was like one of the all time moments. If I could have that recorded, I would hang it somewhere in the house to just replay over and over again because it's hilarious. But and I think it was cool watching the final. The one thing that I thought was awesome, especially, was the people that were rocking both USA and Mexico, because obviously, once again, there's a lot of Mexican Americans here in the
yeah,
United States. I always, as much as I have a rivalry with Mexico, being that I'm a U.S. men's national team
mhm,
supporter, I have a appreciation for Mexico because they are loyal to mi selección,
yeah,
the
yep,
national team, that as you should be. This is something that's when you're born. Even the people that are born here in the United States, they're raised to love El Tri. They're always
yep.
they're always going to be there. And every World Cup, I mean, the safest bet is there's going to be Mexico. Mexico's gonna be there, and the Mexicans gonna show out, and it's cool. I love it. I love when other cultures are embracing the Mexican culture. I still love to this day the clip of when uh South Korea upsetted Germany, which helped Mexico qualify to a knockout round. And just the Mexicans found their the first Korean guy they saw, and they just threw him up
Uh,
in the air. And to me,
thank you.
it's like the best thing. And I tell Edward to this day, I was like, if Heung-min Son ever leaves like Europe, he should just pull a Gignac and just go to Mexico because he's going to be just probably more embraced than Gignac, and that's saying a lot because Gignac is
Yeah, Gignac is yeah, he's Mexican. Come on, just
he is
yes,
definitely Mexican.
yes, yes.
So, as a matter of fact, I do believe he has his citizenship for Mexico now.
Yeah,
So,
he poor guy. He came up in the wrong generation. He could have killed it for France, but he showed up in the wrong generation, wrong decade,
oh yeah,
fortunately.
but yeah, no, but yeah, that's what I think it's awesome, and so I love the state. I love the one. I have been in a Gold Cup final. I know what it's like. It's always like I was in there. I was in Chicago in 2019, and
Nice.
it was a sea of green and like a one little corner. And I'm not saying like a whole section, like a whole little corner of the stadium that was nothing but a bunch of white kids. I was in that corner, so so I mean I get it, and it was funny though because like I hear someone talking, I talk to them in Spanish, like, wait, you speak Spanish? I was like, yeah,
Like, come on,
like what are we doing here, man? It was just,
like just
uh,
slide.
and they're like, I'm Salvadoran. Oh, okay, okay.
You're neutral.
So it was funny, but yeah, and I experienced like it's just no other kind of level of fandom like the Mexican fans. To me, it's a thing of beauty. It could be frustrating, but
Like, yeah,
but it's a strong fan base, and they show support for the team. And like I said, going into this final, and we'll go right into the final now. Mexico, they win 2-1, beat the USA here in Houston. I was not gonna go because those tickets are way too expensive. but
uh,
but yeah, man, the game, I feel like very good game. I think it was a real good game. I enjoyed it. A lot of drama, a lot of physicality, which is what you expect from CONCACAF.
yep.
Mexico had 60% of the possession, also outshot the U.S. 16 shots and with 8 shots on target to U.S.'s
Ooh.
6 shots and 3 shots on target. For me, I think the opening goal, the set piece goal from Chris Richards, it was awesome. I love the goal. I think it was kind of that, and then of course Brohalter is the one that brings in that comes off with the set piece.
It had
But
to be.
but Chris Richards once again, another big moment coming off a set piece. And then, of course, the guy that everyone expects to perform for Mexico, Raul Jimenez, a guy that I've boasted a lot. I am a big fan of Raul Jimenez. Scores a goal, does his tribute for Diego Jota once again.
Teammate.
Yeah, teammate back in his Wolves days. It's one of those things. It's bigger than football.
Yep.
And got to do his little, got to do Diego's little celebration. So I thought it was really cool. Really one amazing shot. Tim Ream got in front of him and he still was able to put that shot directly. So I think that just tells you everything about the quality that Raul Jimenez does. I do believe at one point we're going to see him pass Chicharito in the all-time Mexican goal scorer list. I believe still has a few ways to go, but I think he can do it. And in the 77-minute mark, a set-piece goal from Edson Alvarez. A lot of people were arguing if that was an offside or not. Unfortunately, Freeman kept him in. I believe. Yep. I felt that he was very much in. But I think for the standpoint for Mexico, once again, I say when it comes to CONCACAF competitions, Mexico is going to perform. They performed. They were the best team defensively throughout the tournament. Was it overwhelming at times if you watch the Mexican national team? Yes, but they got the job done. At the end of the day, when it comes to these tournaments, I don't care how you win.
Nope, it does not lift the trophy.
Did you win? Is the question at the end of the day. And Mexico, in fact, won. And it was behind Raul Jimenez and their captain, Edson Alvarez, the guys that should be the guys that stand out, and they did it. I don't think that anyone could say, okay, some people are going to say about the handball. I don't know what the rule is on that.
I think they say the rule that it was not a handball is because as he was falling, that's when he put his hand on the ball and it was unintentional. But I think for me, if it was like a tap, if he taps your hand and then kind of moves, like maybe I will say it was unintentional because you're falling and the ball, but that's a handball grab. You rested on the ball for a millisecond and then you got up. No one knows what a handball is these days, but it is very frustrating. And I think we all are frustrated of what they call a handball because, sometimes if you move your head to the left and then the ball hits your hand to the right, it's not a handball. But depending on who you ask or the referee, they may call it a handball. So it's like,
it's weird.
I saw the rule and it made sense from what the rule standpoint, but for the eye test, it does not look good whatsoever because I will fake falling all the time now and then stop the freaking ball.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, you just say I'm stumbling.
Yeah,
which is real easy to do. A lot of people, that little grass monster pops up every once in a while.
Yeah, just make your laces loose a little bit, and every time it says, "Well, how did you fall?" Look at my laces. Bam.
I will say, I think Men in Blazers had a graphic not a graphic, had an image of when Arsenal, I believe Odegaard did a similar thing. Yeah. They didn't call it a handball either, I believe. So I guess.
Ouch.
I
guess it's Arsenal. Who cares?
Yeah. All right, if they would have made the penalty, I mean, extra time penalties. I don't want to live in a world of what ifs. At the end of the day, they didn't call it. Yep. And honestly, I didn't even know that happened as I was watching. I was just more frustrated once again. U.S. when they're in the final third, just I don't know what it was. Like, to be honest, it was just frustrating to see. Like, maybe they did one little extra thing, or maybe they weren't as direct with the pass. They always gave it up in the worst way possible. I don't know if it's this one player to blame. I don't want to. I know people love to put the blame on Argument, which I'm like, I get it at the same time, but at the same time, I don't think you can't be too critical on him because I think
he's still a kid.
He's playing. I think he's actually playing the way Pochettino wants him to play as a nine. As someone that, once again, I'm not very familiar with how Pochettino uses the nine, but from when I watch Chelsea matches and when I watch PSG, and even when I watched him with Tottenham, I feel like that is how he utilizes his nine. Kind of not necessarily more direct. You can
the Harry Kane like
Harry Kane like, and I think
and Argument is not ready for that.
He's not. I think he still needs to work on his technical ability. But once again, he's very young, and I think once again he's a big guy. Like, he's just big and really fast, and you don't get that combination normally. So I think that's why that what he sees in him. personally, I would have loved to have seen Brian White.
Yeah, he's on fire.
Yeah, and it was kind of like at this point, he should have just stayed with Vancouver. He should have opted out, like the way it was going for him. But Damian Downs, I think I don't know if there's any U.S. players that stood out to you besides Diego Luna or the ones we've already mentioned before. But
I think he's pretty much the one that we all spoke about. That was like, I think his stock. Now he's in a discussion where all the other big boys comes in that he deserved that opportunity. Yeah, I think for someone like me that was maybe a little bit more on the outside, he was literally the story of the tournament. I always liked him when he's at RSL, but now he keeps proving himself of the players that I'd like to watch play.
Mm-hmm.
Righteous Felon Craft Jerky is the official jerky of BellyUpSports. For over a decade, Righteous Felon Craft Jerky has led the American meat snack revolution by concocting delicious, adventurous, U.S.-sourced jerky recipes for uncompromising carnivores across the country. With 15 different flavors to choose from, Righteous Felon has all jerky lovers covered, and by using promo code BELLYUP, you will get 15% off your purchase at RighteousFelon.com. Do your taste buds a favor today and rip into a bag of Righteous Felon jerky.
No, exactly, and I think once again, to me, like I said, I went into this tournament. I put Mexico on top of my teams that may win, just because I didn't want to say teams that will for sure win. I just said teams that may possibly.
You
might
put
win.
2 teams above your team.
I did. I did. I'm not ashamed to admit that. Even though now the Canada pick didn't necessarily age as well as it did, but hey, not a bad list. No. Just don't look at the one for the Club World Cup.
Should we even talk about that one?
I mean, Real Madrid's still in there, so that was my heavy pick.
Okay.
PSG, yeah, I do have PSG on the list. I could just pull up the list, but I'm not going to do that.
Hey,
but
PSG's going to win it all. Well, or Chelsea.
And I did have Chelsea.
Look at you.
Chelsea was on the list. Look at me. I'm not that dumb. So,
no. So who did you have at the 4th one then?
Bayern Munich, and I had Man City.
Well, which would have made sense based on paper. So I ain't mad at that.
I will say highlight of going to work and watching the games on my phone, or my coworker will have it on his laptop. When it's like our job's been dead these past couple of days because of rain, but
so you had to clarify that part.
So we were watching the game, and I remember we have a kid in our job who's 20 years old, and I remember it was Real Madrid versus Al Hilal for their group match, the first group match for them, and he's just like, I don't know, man, I don't see anybody worth noting for this Al Hilal team. I was like, wait, what? And he's just like, yeah, I don't think they're going to be a good team. I was like, bro, they have Koulibaly, arguably one of the best defenders in Africa. The continent of I'm not
and
saying
a captain.
I was like, not a country in Africa, like the entire continent of Africa. Banu, the guy was a problem in the World Cup.
Goalkeeper of the tournament so far, depending on who does what for the rest of the tournament, but he definitely should get that.
João Cancelo, Ruben Neves.
Yep.
I mean, Savage. I mean, I was like, this team could go pretty far.
And I forgot the Brazilian name. I forgot his name.
Leonardo.
No, I think there was another one. What's his? Oh, I just went blank. Marcelo? No, something like.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. He wears 77, right?
Yes, I have it like right at the tip of my tongue, but we'll probably, I guess, you can edit that and put that on top. But yes, I forgot his name. But yeah, Al Hilal is they have a team to beat, and clearly they beat Man City.
They beat my one of my top 5s. So,
yes.
I mean, no, I think it was just funny because I was like, hey, look, I'm not like Jose. I'm not direct saying, oh, you don't know ball kind of thing. But I did say I did tell him like. And he gave me like the best 20-year-old response ever, which was, I know more ball than you. And then
Oh my
I was
goodness.
like, you literally just did not know who Koulibaly was.
Yeah. So
I mean,
you.
like,
Yeah.
it was one of the. Also, this kid thinks that it's cheaper to just buy salads from Salada versus just going to a grocery store. So take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, we got to teach those kids. I was trying to teach maybe the other kids also, where I think a lot of eyes were open in the Club World Cup of maybe a lot of fandom were in the European side of things because that's all they were able to see. I think a lot of people were surprised about Brazilians teams. I was not. I knew who, they typically do well, and that's why they all get cherry picked after those tournaments. That's why they go to Europe. So for me, it was just amusing to see all the people like, oh my gosh, Brazilian league is much better than. I'm like,
They're also in their element. I mean,
yeah.
they're.
I'm like, so were you living under a rock or something? Like,
I think to make a fair point, I know the weather has been a complaint from most of the European sides. I won't say all of them. I will say like a good group of them were complaining about the weather. I think when you look at the teams that were playing from Mexico, teams were playing from South America, like this is a typical this is like a normal day for them. So I mean, like, obviously also the teams from Saudi Arabia. So it was like. And it goes back to when it reminded me at least when in the World Cup qualifiers when the U.S. had two World Cup qualifiers, one against Brazil, one against El Salvador, and they played the games. I know for a fact Honduras was in Minnesota, and it was like during the winter time.
that's wrong.
And so many people were like, "Oh man, that's not right. They should have picked a warmer state to play in." And like I was like, "Look, is this terrible to do? Yes, but is this brilliant also? Yes." Because also, mind you, in that same window, Canada played Mexico in Canada at night in Canada. So, and there was like snow. I was like, look, you gotta play to your advantage. You got. At the end of the day, you're both in the same elements, but at this, work to your advantage. I mean,
That's why other countries have the high altitude, right? For that exact reason.
I mean, literally, Mexico plays in Estadio Azteca in one of the highest altitude stadiums. It's torture in there from what I've heard. And according to this is just a little quick snippet from Hector Herrera. He told me that because I asked him what was the worst place he ever played in. Like, what is like the worst? Like he said,
Yeah.
El Salvador and Honduras was like a good tie for him because it's so humid, it's so hot. You feel like you can't breathe. This is a guy that's used to playing in Azteca, by the way.
Yeah.
And he said
Your lungs are built for it.
like he's just like it is just so unbearable that it's just not ideal. Like it is not the most ideal situation to play in. So I would say Central America, like if you're qualifying, you have to play in Central America, playing in that kind of element. Obviously, the field conditions as a whole. I don't know if you saw like whenever USA played El Salvador, and it was like the field was just muddy. It was. I think Moussa got like a red card because he slipped. And
he got pissed off. Mm-hmm.
He tackled a player.
Yes.
So it was one of those like, hey, that's their advantage in some ways. So I don't blame people too much for it. But I think as far as I guess like wrapping this up, but like Club World Cup for me, I've enjoyed it so far. I think the stadiums that were not empty, that weren't as full, I think there was some valid reasons. One, probably just because the matchup wasn't appealing to certain people, and two,
middle of the day,
so
and expensive. Come on.
Like I'm sure you could just easily just stop whatever you're doing, Musa, to go watch Chelsea in Atlanta. Like,
yeah, and then after that go to LA to watch PSG just to come home in time to pick up the kids. Yeah, no, we ain't living the jet life.
You mean you can't do that?
Hey, if that was the case, we wouldn't be talking here, right? We'll be face to face on the podcast.
I always I've explained it to some people because they're like, "Oh, like where'd you go to vacation?" "Oh, I went to Chicago for a vacation." In the U.S., you just stay in the U.S. for vacation. I was like, U.S. is so big that you can literally vacation in the state. Like Musa can take his family to Disney World in Orlando.
Yep, and that's a 18-hour drive. Yeah. And back in Europe, we probably did 5 or 6 countries one
Yeah,
way.
actually, funny story. When I was in El Salvador, I was there visiting family. I had a friend that was also from Houston that was there at the same time, and
Yeah.
they were like, "Oh, what part of El Salvador are you in?" And funny enough, they were like 30 minutes away from me, which was hilarious to me because I was like, "This El Salvador, this is like basically the size of a city."
Yeah.
Like,
Usually like,
that's how tiny that country is. But it was just funny to think. I was like, we're talking about towns within a country, not even. We're talking about one city. How like I could be 30 minutes from somebody else in my own city.
and they were like, you're so far, 30 minutes. You're like, yeah.
I don't know if I could make that drive. You lost
Like,
me
yeah.
after 30 minutes.
Yeah. Like,
I'll catch you. I'll catch you another day.
yeah, it takes us 30 minutes just to go to a grocery store. Come on.
Yeah, I believe that. But I mean, obviously, congratulations, Mexico. I'm
Yes.
not gonna sugarcoat it anymore. Else, I mean, I picked you from the beginning, so I'm not gonna. I'm not shocked by it. But yeah, I think that I think for any of these fan bases, I think for anything, especially for the guys that are qualifying, that are already qualified for the World Cup, they now know what's wrong with the team.
Hmm.
Yeah, you can even say the same thing for the U.S. They know the issues. They know now they have time to make those corrections. Unfortunately, there's no competitive matches now at this point. Now it is strictly getting this team ready and tuned, which I think
Which is scary.
this is where I'll ask: is this now where you got to be strategic with your friendlies?
Yes. But also you have to where you pick those teams now is that you may not pick the team that's clearly going to be in the World Cup, but probably the adjacent country that may have maybe the same style of play that
Hmm.
don't have to participate, so you kind of get a feel of what it's coming to you, right? So it's like if you know you're going to play Spain, for example, it's not like you're going to go and pick Norway to play for.
Hmm.
You may, for funny enough, you most likely will be going to Italy or France to pick one of those countries. So if you know you're playing Germany, then it's more of the Nordic. So I think that will be the strategy where they have to pick from almost each corner of the world a team that has not qualified so that they kind of be expecting something from each of those corners of the world. So it would be a Asia, African, European, Asia team to get a feel of it. So I'm curious to see who they pick to play against. And hopefully those teams will have something to prove as well so that it is not just a friendly.
Hmm.
They have to
No,
come
yeah,
as close as possible to a team that's want to beat them.
yeah,
Seriously.
exactly. I think you make a very good point because I remember for the 2010 World Cup, Mexico for preparation because I believe like there was like a fun fact that Mexico had never played against an African nation prior to
Hmm.
the 2010 World Cup, or at least I guess in a competitive matchup. So they were in the same group with South Africa, and I remember that they played a lot of friendlies against African nations
Yep.
to prepare themselves for South Africa. Clearly, that didn't work because they drew. But
Well, they drew though, right?
I always like taking the jab.
They drew. They could have lost. One
Yeah,
of those surprise things.
yeah. It's gonna be interesting. But yeah, Gold Cup I think was a fun Gold Cup. I think this was a very interesting Gold Cup, a little bit different. Also, yeah, I get it. It's weird Saudi Arabia was in it, but uh,
Yeah.
you know, money. So,
Yeah. Unfortunately, everything is around money these days.
I mean, it wasn't that long ago that this tournament was sponsored by Qatar Airways. So
Well, they have something else
now
of
they have something.
sponsoring, but
But of course, Musa, it's always a pleasure to have you on, man. It's always great to have you on this show, man. So, this
appreciate
is
it.
this is your time, man. Let me know what's going on with you and your ventures right now.
Oh, well, so I guess if you've seen some of the announcements, it was like with World Football itself, I will be doing a lot more of the international soccer coverage. So I'll be doing a lot of the watch along for League, maybe for example, a lot of the African tournaments. around and talk maybe PSG as well on the live watch-alongs. And for the MLS part, will be Top Corner Talk, TCT, where we'll be talking San Luis soccer. And be on the lookout for the my soccer story, which my good friend Hector is already on one. So if you haven't, go make sure you go check it out because he has some very funny stories.
I try my
And
best.
hopefully we'll meet all 30 teams in MLS. We'll have one of their major fans join me and talk about it. So we have the blue team from Sporting KC and we have Austin. So I think Jose is next for Dallas.
Oh man, that's Jose always brings it, so I
Yes.
know that's gonna be a good one for sure.
But yes, so that's pretty much it. It's just talking soccer preparation for the World Cup. See what we can, how much trouble we can cause on Mo Football TV and Top Corner Talk.
All right, that's great, man. Everyone, please go check out Musa, man. The guy is one of the hardest working men in football, soccer, YouTube, and also podcasting. So make sure you guys check him out. The guy's the man. I love this man. So, Musa,
I try my best. I try my best.
you're a legend in my heart, and we'll see. I know Real Madrid and PSG got to play against each other. We'll see how
So
that
who do
pans
you
out.
get? What do you think?
I mean, dude, you got to pick Real Madrid.
You, you, so, so, so that's your heart talking,
Yeah.
but like the brain, what's the score you're thinking?
Yeah, Hoyson not being there is gonna really suck. So, hopefully Asensio doesn't cause too much damage. But I mean, PSG, they're the heavy favorites for sure in this tournament. So, how conflicted would you be if it's PSG Chelsea?
Dude, I told people, I said, I do not know, but I was still, it will be slightly leading to PSG because clearly
You played them.
that's my team, my home team, the Caddy team. So I, they're above. So it's like a 80-20, but 80% PSG because that's my hometown and all that. So yes, I want PSG to win all the trophies, to have 5 trophies this year. And then Manchester City cannot say we've got the most trophy because no, PSG got it all.
Yeah, that would solidify a lot for Osman Dembele as well.
Oh,
So
I think he almost certified that for World Cup, right? That goal.
it's definitely a safe bet. I definitely would say it should be Osman Dembele, but you never know it. Actually, no, you should know
Or
with the French Premier.
Vindiha probably is another one that I think if PSG wins this one, he had won 7 trophies in total in one season.
That's insane.
Like, there's not many people that can dream of getting 1 or 2 a season. He had 7.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That also just great business part on PSG for that acquisition.
Oh, yeah. And he was it, he's a Wolf, right? Is that, he
Hmm?
was in the, is that Wolf he was at?
Kvaratskhelia?
Okay, Scally, he was at Napoli.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's also will be winning, I don't know how many trophies
Oh, wait,
in
no,
one.
he didn't win anything. Oh no, he did win. He won the Scudetto.
Yeah, with Napoli.
Yeah.
So yeah, so he will have probably 2 or 3 trophies. Well, 5. So yeah, so that's 4 with PSG, 5 with Napoli. So that would be 6 for him. Like that's ridiculous. If somebody 6
he,
trophies in
he
one
just
season.
quickly flew to Napoli, went to go do the trophy lift.
Yeah, I mean, I think they just I don't even know he lifted it, but I don't think there's many teams that could say 2 or 3 or 4 of our players have 5 or 6 trophies.
With different teams. That's good business, great scouting on PSG's part.
And we're good. And I think the biggest story will be the Mbappe. Since he couldn't do it for PSG to win the Champions League, and now
See,
playing his old
this is
team.
where I will tell you like how interesting it is to now be one being a fan, but then now having this podcast because there is moments where you kind of push the fandom to the side a little bit.
Hmm.
Because And me and Edward talked about it where I was like, look, like I'm not saying I want Real Madrid to have a downfall, but it would be hilarious if like Mbappe wins nothing and have to like the year before, the year that he probably should have joined Real Madrid, he could have had a trophy.
Yep.
And then the year that he didn't, that he waited too long to go to Real Madrid, and then PSG becomes this just unstoppable force with Luis Enrique, which also all-time clip is Luis Enrique explaining to him
Ridiculous.
Michael Jordan. So
yeah, I think he needs to be put in that discussion with like one of the greatest coaches, because if he pulls this one, him and Pep are like.
No, I 100%
Right
agree. I 100% agree with that, because I also was saying I believe when I was recapping the first half of the season, at that time PSG was undefeated, and I was like, I don't think we're giving enough love to what Luis Enrique is doing, because obviously you lose Mbappe, at least initially everyone thought that was going to be like a big loss.
Right.
Osman Dembele, I think you give him you're now having your best year with him.
Oh, this
is
ridiculous.
the year of Dembele, which this is why I also kind of feel like he should be winning the Ballon d'Or. I don't know if there was any like expectations from this kid.
In league, he was like the Neymar of league. Like he's dribbling. I thought he was Brazilian for a moment when I was watching him play. I thought he was Brazilian, but he's like, no, my favorite player is Neymar, and that's how he modeled his dribbling and fun soccer. And then it was just a dream come true. Then go to PSG and do what Neymar was supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, I love everything what PSG done. They're not, not the evil empire that's just buying guys like Zlatan Ibrahimovic and just throwing stuff out and see what sticks to the wall kind of thing. This was very strategic. I mean, João Neves, a guy that couldn't even get much minutes with Wolves, and is one of the most important players to this PSG team. I mean, the guy's even willing to play fullback for Portugal right now. So I think it's very telling about what
That's
PSG
why France is scary.
Yeah, France is It's like, it's one thing. Like, I mean, I don't know if I don't even know if this era will ever go down, because it's just, you guys are just coughing out more and more just promising young stars. I mean, it's
I want to apologize, because there's the U23 and 19 has already players that
are playing first team.
Doué is an under 23 player technically, but he plays Emmerich is also, I think, under 19. So just want to apologize in advance. There's still the U23 and 319 that, I mean, pretty much some of them could play already for the first team.
Hey, no apologies needed, man. I've been enjoying French football for a while, and I mean, I picked them to win the 2018 World Cup. So I mean, I didn't. I was like, this team's unfair. I thought that team was unfair. This might be the cheat code. So I mean,
I hope so.
We'll see what happens then. I can't wait for it. But yeah, Moussa, make sure you guys check out Moussa, man. Mo Football, all that great stuff, man.
Appreciate you.
And always a pleasure to have you, man. So thank you.
There'll be many more to come.
Many more to come for sure, man. We'll go ahead and segue right into the conclusion of this episode.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan from No Credentials Required to talk to you about one of our newest partners at BellyUpSports, SeatGeek. Yeah, live sports is great on television, but the feeling of being at the arena is a priceless experience. That's why our friends at SeatGeek are there to help you find the best tickets at the best prices. Not only can you get tickets to sporting events, but you can also get tickets to concerts, comedy shows, musicals, and more. Search for your desired event now at SeatGeek.com, enter promo code BellyUpSports at checkout, and you save $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek. Life's an event. We have the tickets.
All right, guys, make sure you guys follow us on social media, on Instagram, X, Facebook, at InstantNameFC. Greatly appreciate all the love there. Follow us on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and, of course, BellyUpSports. Shout out to BellyUpSports. Check out the website, BellyUpSports.com. Also, find their YouTube channel. That's where you're going to find the full episode, this one, on their YouTube channel. So make sure you guys go ahead and check it out over there, as well as the other great content that's done there at BellyUpSports. Also, you can find this also be featured on GolzTV, GOZ.TV. follow their social media at Golz.tv on Instagram and at Golz_TV on Twitter or X. Some quick housekeeping before we conclude this episode. So once again, we're still on break. We won't start going back into regular scheduled programming maybe like 3 weeks, maybe 2 weeks before the European calendar starts. So that's just so you have a frame of reference, which we would just do our previews for the European leagues that are going into that season. Just so you guys know, a heads up. So we're still on break. There will be one more episode during this break, and that is just going to be to recap the Club World Cup. So stay tuned for that. Aside from that, there's really not much else to say. I mean, literally next week we'll have another episode just for that. But once again, we are still in break, and yeah. So, but it is the summer of soccer, and that's why we're here. So be on the lookout for our recap of the FIFA Club World Cup. With all that being said, man, also once again, thank you everybody. Thanks for listening. Catch us when we do our recap for the Club World Cup. And yeah, take care, guys.